Last-minute shake-up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning ride is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as
Nice
simple
ride.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Well, hello there, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, well-being expert and wellness coach, Darlene Marshall. And at the top of the show today, I just want to take a moment and recognize we're streaming this today while there are active wildfires in Los Angeles. Likely many of you will be listening to this while that's still going on. And even though this is like a wellness show, one criticism of the well-being space is toxic positivity, where we pretend that everything is all like hunky-dory, regardless of what's going on. And we definitely don't want to do that. It has been heartbreaking to see the fires, to hear the stories. I think one of the remarkable things is that throughout all of it and the scope of the impact of what is happening, how little loss of life there has been. So I just want to say at the top of the show that if you are in Los Angeles, you have people that you love in Los Angeles, I do too. And my heart is breaking for them and for you. And I hope that whoever you are, wherever you are, that you and the people that you love are safe. So that being said, let's get on to today's show, which Happy New Year. That's a gear shift. This is our first live show of 2025. So Happy New Year to us all. I kicked off 2025 with two things. One of them being a new strain of COVID. Everybody in my household is sick. That's how we started the new year, was hacking and coughing and masking. My mom said that what we were really doing was purging all of the ick from 2024 so that we could step in clean to 2025. I don't know that I agree with her. It wasn't the funnest New Year's I've ever had, but at least we got that out of the way for the start of the year. The other thing that I kicked off 2025 with was a workshop kicking off the new community that I'm starting, that I founded. It's called the Wellbeing Revolution. And today on the show, I wanted to share with you, regardless of whether or not you're interested in digital communities or whatever, but I wanted to share with you the central premise of this idea of a well-being revolution. So today's going to be the mission statement, the manifesto. I want to reclaim the word manifesto. I think that it's gotten a bad rap. The definition of manifesto: a public declaration of policies or aims. This is definitely a public declaration of the aim of what I'm calling the well-being revolution. And it starts with the idea that I have been hearing from all the corners of my life: clients, friends, students, workshops, corporate work, private stuff, my mom, doesn't matter. All day long, people have been telling me they feel overwhelmed, overstimulated, they are tired, they are anxious, they're scared. I think there's a lot of people out there with just kind of this ambient lack of ease going on for themselves. And I also think it's a little bit of a paradox when we look at it closer, because we have more information about health and wellness and well-being even than has ever existed in the general public before, ever in human history, right? Podcasts, reels and TikToks and all of that, blogs and news articles from every coach and trainer and doctor and whatever, self-proclaimed expert, than has ever existed. And people are saying that they are feeling less well than they have felt in a long, long, long time. And in some ways, it's very frustrating for someone like me, because there is just so much nonsense information out there. Everyone seems to want to present themselves as an expert. People are so polarized, and it becomes really difficult to establish where can you get good information without having to also consume a bunch of garbage. Who can you actually trust? Who are the actual experts? And at the foundation, in my opinion, after doing this for 13 years, most people really need the basics to be well. Eat more vegetables, move your body in a way that feels good, build healthful relationships, learn how to regulate your nervous system even when you're challenged, to cope with difficult emotion, finding meaning in what we do in our lives. Like, those are not big, great concepts, right? That, like, some of them are pretty heady, but they're also stuff that, like, our grandmas told us. So it's not like we need crazy stuff, but the fact is, and I believe this to be a true fact, we live in a reality that is being designed to exploit our attention, to exploit our neurophysiology. And I don't want to contribute to the negative content out there. I try really hard to mostly put out like positive, useful ideas. But it is the truth when we look at it from like not even 10,000 feet. We just go like 1,000 feet and it becomes pretty obvious. So let me give you a few examples. I'm going to give you 2 examples that I think all of us are familiar with at this point from our own experience. And the first one is food. Our food that is engineered, right, our food that is manufactured, which is between 70 to 80% of the average American grocery store, is ultra-processed foods. So it's foods that are engineered. It is engineered not just for its taste and color and like chemical makeup. It is engineered for things like mouthfeel. And yes, that is an industry term, mouthfeel. There are people whose job it is to not just engineer the chemical concoction, but actually A/B test, something called A/B testing of that manufactured food. Now, if you don't know what A/B testing is, it is kind of like when you go to the eye doctor and the eye doctor's like, okay, which is better, 1 or 2? And you kind of go back and forth, 1 or 2, until you're like, yeah, 2, I can see more clearly. Think of it as that, but for things like marketing or product design. And in this case, the product is the food you're eating. So in an A/B test of something like crunchability, we'd give you 2 and be like, okay, do you like the crunch of A or B better? And you'd crunch on A, you'd crunch on B, and you go like, oh, I like B. Or what's even more insidious than that clear, overt, direct A/B testing is you bring in 2 groups of people, you put them in a room and you say like, okay, we want to test you on these movie trailers. Tell us what you think about these movie trailers. And then they put snacks on the table. And then you're testing which group of snacks that group of people unconsciously overconsumes. Like, how much more of the snacks do they eat as they're sitting there doing something that they've been told it's actually about something else, but they're counting how much you passively overeat the snacks. That is designed for subconscious craveability, subconscious passive irresistibility, so that you don't even know that you can't control it. And so you try this thing that everyone's saying, like, oh, you got to try these, like this particular kind of chip or whatever. You try it, you eat more uncontrollably, then you crave it more because it subconsciously overstimulated you. So you buy more, you eat it more, you crave it more, rinse and repeat. That is all designed and tested to exploit the subconscious desire for those foods. Subconsciously craveable. Okay, so you might not even realize that you're craving it, but what it's also doing is changing your brain. It is changing the reward and pleasure centers of your neurophysiology, your neurochemistry, your synapses to increase your craving for those foods. designed to exploit you. I also want to be clear as I go on this little tangent here. I am not a conspiracy theory person. I do not believe that there are like secret rooms of people who are like, we're going to make them crave this food and it's going to make them super sick. And then they're going to have to pay for the medicine. Like, I'm not that person. What I think this actually is just like normal people trying to be good at their jobs. And they're just really good at their jobs. And like, whoopsie, we broke everybody. Like, I don't think that there was a cabal of people designing our reality to hurt us. But I've got another example that I want to unpack for you, which is your phone. And again, I think we all know this. The apps on our phones have been designed to exploit our dopamine systems so that we'll go back and check them more compulsively. So that even if you don't have a reason to, even if there's no ping, there's no vibration, you pick up your phone and you look at it without even thinking about it. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just start observing how often you go for your phone without being stimulated to by the phone itself, or without you having had a thought of like, I got to text my sister to like make sure tomorrow's plans are still on or whatever. Just start observing it and see how often you look without there being a reason or a notification. Or if you really want to drive yourself bonkers, tell yourself that you are going to stop passively scrolling. You're only going to look if you have a reason to, and then just start to notice how often you catch yourself doing it anyway. Because once you notice, it'll drive you totally crazy. That is your dopamine system having been overstimulated by an app that was engineered. We live in a world that has been designed to exploit us in order to sell us things. And it's making us all miserable. So even though most people probably just need the basics to build their well-being, we're being sold all of this advanced stuff telling us that we need it in order to be well. Biohacking technologies that analyze your poop to tell you what kind of carbs to eat. Yes, that is a thing you could buy right now. Wearable technologies, we've all got one that tells us if we've moved enough instead of just listening to our bodies. Designer supplements, or what might even be worse is like the crappy supplements that might not even be what they say they are on the outside of the bottle when you take what's inside of the bottle. Because if you look into the testing on that, the majority of supplements aren't quite what they say they are. And so to me, it's no wonder that I'm hearing from so many corners of my life that people feel overwhelmed, they feel overstimulated, they feel anxious. They're being told as a marketing strategy that there is stuff wrong with them because negative emotion is more easy to exploit for sales, and then sold solutions that don't really work because it's not really what people need. You are listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I am your host, Darlene Marshall, and today I'm sharing with you my manifesto, the Wellbeing Revolution. And yes, we kicked off with some negativity, with some difficult ideas, but it's because we gotta be honest with ourselves about where we find ourselves in order to be proactive about a meaningful solution. If you listen to the recent Pragmatic Optimism episode, that should sound a bit familiar. This is why this year I want to start in 2025 a well-being revolution, whether with me or on your own. And if we rewind the tape about 30 years, back in the 90s, Dr. Martin Seligman, considered to be the grand poobah, the founder of the field of positive psychology, when he was president of the American Psychological Association, he put a challenge out to psychology, what he called the moonshot goal, that we would have 50% of the human species flourishing by 2025. 50% of human beings flourishing by 2050. This is 2025. 50% of human beings flourishing by 2050. And here we are. We are 25 years out from the moonshot goal. And it feels like a Jupiter shot goal to me right now. I believe if we're going to be pragmatically optimistic about the whole thing, if we are going to have a chance to get close to that mark, we need something radical to happen. A radical shift in culture, a radical shift in how we live our lives, a radical shift in human well-being, because we would have to be exponentially more well to get there. We'd need a well-being revolution. I don't think we need it just because it would be nice to have. yes, thriving is nice. It is nice to feel good, but it is not just like grandma's cookies. It's not just nice to have. Being in a state of well-being is nourishing to us in ways that are very important, even in the face of the incredible challenges that we face. When you measure well-being, it's not just grandma's hugs. Human beings who are doing well are better at what they are doing. I'm going to say it twice. When we are doing well, we're better at what we're doing. We are better problem solvers. We're better collaborators. We show up better in service of whatever it is that we care about. Let me put it another way. Would you rather have a neurosurgeon who is super stressed, burnt out, their hair is falling out? Or do you want the neurosurgeon who slept really well last night? They have great relationships and they can just be present in the moment of your surgery. Or to like put the nail on the head a little bit right now, if you were the fire commissioner in Los Angeles today, do you want to be a person who is depressed and dejected? Or do you want it to be someone who feels that it is a mission, that this is their calling, that their life has led them to a place where they are there to save the city of LA? I want the person who has deep meaning. I don't want the person who sees it and feels overwhelmed. They are ready because they are in a state of readiness, and that state of readiness comes from well-being. I want to unpack for you why that is true. So, anger, fear, anxiety, rage, yes, they are very useful emotions. They focus us into a problem. They lock us in on what's wrong. That was a very important evolutionary adaptation. We are the product of the ancestors who, when they were in the presence of threat or challenge, they didn't ignore it, right? Ignoring a threat would cause them not to be able to reproduce, but it's more than that. That was the primary theory of emotion for a long time, that if we didn't ignore the threat, negativity, bias, negative emotion locks us in. Okay, but we can take that one step further. Positive emotion is actually adaptive. We're not just the product of the humans that addressed a threat. We're the product of the humans that were able to explore their environment, to build rich relationships, to build new skills and abilities and tools. And that stuff happens when we are flourishing, when we are thriving, when we are well. That is because when we are calm and regulated and we feel joy or humor or pleasure, it opens us up and makes us more adaptive. It makes us more neurologically flexible, which means that we can learn stuff better. Literally, you learn things better in a positive state. You gain better skills. You have better peripheral vision, so you explore your environment more. You notice things. Have you ever noticed that when you're in a good mood on a beautiful day and you like notice the flowers and the birds versus when you're on a bad mood on a beautiful day and you're just locked in? It's that. But then apply that to all of the details that learning takes. We are more creative because of that adaptability. We're better problem solvers. That comes from the creativity. It is easier for us to learn and grow. And that includes growing better relationships because we are more open. We experience less subconscious biases. We are less judgmental of other people when we are in a state of wellness. And therefore it's easier to bond, to connect, all because we feel well, all because we are in a state of well-being. That is what Dr. Barbara Fredrickson called the broaden and build theory of positive emotion. It's easier to do good and to be good when we are in a state of well-being. Now, I am an elder millennial. I grew up in a generation where I was raised by like, save the whales, save the world. You can be president one day. When I got to about 25 to 30, I realized like, it's kind of silly. Like the world is doing all right. Like we're doing pretty good. What is there to save? Like what is there to be really added about? What does that even mean? But I regret the last decade of thought. if I rewind the tape and I look back and I think like, oh, such a naive little summer child I was. I think a lot of people feel these difficult emotions that we're having right now because we're starting to feel like the world could use some saving. And now is an opportunity for us to step up to the potential and the promise of our generation as millennials, as Gen X, as Gen Z coming up. We have an opportunity to really shape the world in a radical way, to show up for what we care about. And if we're going to show up for what we care about, we need to be well enough to do that in a meaningful way. We need to be radically well in a state where we can connect and collaborate and solve problems, real problems, whether we're talking about political, social, environmental, or maybe you don't care about saving the world. I don't have to put that on you. You don't have to take it up. But maybe it's your own household. Maybe you've got adolescents or children who are struggling with their mental health, because the statistics tell us that that's likely for most households right now, that you're going to have somebody in the household who's struggling with their mental health. And if you're the space holder, the placeholder, being well enough to do that. Maybe it is your community, your extended family, or I don't want to put any of that on you either. Maybe it is just your own well-being. You want to be well for your own sake, to have your own best self, your own life, for your work, your hobbies. That is enough. But whatever it is that you care about, the point is, you will be better for it if you are in a well-being state. You are listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I am your host, Darlene Marshall. Today, the Wellbeing Revolution. My argument for why it is time that we prioritize well-being, because we have to. So let me bring that all the way home. To get there, we're going to have to do something different than what social media has been doing for us, right? It's a total lack of nuance. Call out videos and burning it down and hot takes and the algorithm deciding what you think is not going to help us. Is not. Yes, it is popular and cool. What is popular and cool is not always what's useful and most adaptive to all of us. We need real information that we can actually trust and is worthwhile. We need community and support. We need one another. Human beings are pack animals. And we need a path that can actually meet people where they are and grow in a direction that's going to help them well-being, right? The path needs to be flexible enough that people can follow it in a life that makes sense for them and works for them, and that it doesn't actually just lead us all back into the same problems that we've had along the way. To me, that path starts with gaining awareness of yourself, what is true for you, what you can control in your life, and how much power people really do have to make those choices. If you've listened to any of the episodes around helplessness and passivity, when we feel that we don't have control of our lives, we don't have any agency, the powerlessness that sets in, the passivity that comes with it, that leads to depression. So the first step is to gain self-awareness and know that you do have a sense of control, that there are things in your life that you can change when you exert that agency, to say no, to say yes, to start something different, to connect with and know yourself and prioritize your own well-being and who you really are, that authenticity. That is where I think it starts. And then this moment, this place and this journey that I'm unpacking for you, this is where it gets really difficult for someone like me, if I'm being fully honest, because I don't want to sound like that nagging huckster out there just trying to sell supplements and have a hot take. I want to really help people. That's why I'm here. That was the point of starting the show. It was always to give people something they could use and give them a body of work that they could reference on their own journeys to their well-being. But I have been feeling the limitations of the show for a while because it's just one direction. It's just me talking at you with what I think might be useful and what you need to hear, which is, just part of podcasting, is part of content creation in general. But that can only do so much. And it also completely neglects the whole like community and support piece, right? The connection and the feedback loops. And so this year I'm starting something new in the new year. I mentioned it at the top of the show, but I wanted to tell you a bit more about it. And like I said a moment ago, whether with me or on your own, it's just recognizing that well-being has to be a foundational priority because we have to be well enough to keep showing up. But if you do want to step into community, I do want to tell you where you can go for that. So this digital community that I'm talking about is called the Wellbeing Revolution. I wanted to build a place that people could distance themselves from traditional social media, but still be connecting with other people who are really invested in well-being and doing it in a meaningful way. Totally free. There will be some paid premium content down the line, but the community itself and the core content are free. There are mini courses and challenges, daily posts, journal prompts, Q&As, a whole community of people already there that is just growing and getting momentum. So you could find it if you do want to join it. You go to my website, it's darlene.coach, and there's a banner there. Or you could go, here's the URL. Hopefully you got your pen ready by now. The Wellbeing Revolution. So the wellbeing revolution.mn.co. It's also on my Instagram. I hope you'll check it out. But again, regardless, whether with me or on your own, I hope that this year you resolve, not a resolutions person, but that I do think you can resolve to this one. Connect with yourself and other people in a really deep way that is authentic to you. People who buy into this idea that we need to be well and that it happens together without selfishness and hubris. That you buy less BS, but eat more vegetables. Move your body in ways that feels good to you. Do things that are in service of what is most meaningful to you. And you help people who need help. And I really do think that that is the best that any of us can do in this life. Happy New Year. Thank you for listening. Of course, just like any episode, I would love to hear your feedback. So you can find me, my email, is info@darlene.coach. On Instagram, I am darlene.coach. My website is darlene.coach. If you're a fan of the show, I hope that you've already subscribed. If you haven't already, please go ahead and do so. If you could go ahead and leave us a review, thank you to the people who already have. Share about the show, tag me, come join the Wellbeing Revolution. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves and be well.